This Veterans Day, we take you inside the military's fight to understand a mysterious brain injury that's hurting U.S. troops. After more than 2 decades of war in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, an unknown number of service members suffer from neurological problems that researchers suspect could be linked to the firing of their own weapons, resulting in lasting symptoms like memory loss, migraines, and personality changes. ABC's Anne Flaherty reports from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
First 20 years, I was, in an operational status the entire time. So it was always either going out the door for a deployment or training up for the next one.
How many deployments?
I've got 14 total. So
14 deployments.
Yeah, between Iraq, Afghanistan, and then separate trips to Africa.
Eric is a master sergeant in the U.S. Army Special Forces, stationed here in Fort Liberty in North Carolina. ABC News has agreed only to identify him by his first name and rank because he is still on active duty. His combat mission's classified. Eric says in his 22 years in the Army, he's done it all. Trained in shoot houses, fired anti-tank weapons, and shot mortars.
You get exposed to all of it. We're not just overseas, but also in training.
And in recent years has started experiencing symptoms he couldn't explain: bad headaches, trouble remembering things, and sudden bursts of anger.
You don't have to be a doctor to understand when you stand too close to something and your head rings.
One day, while at home with his kids, Eric had a wake-up call. A moment, he says, when he snapped.
Our neighbor's dogs hopped over the fence, started chasing them. They come running in the house. I closed the door and just see the 2 dogs standing there and did not even hesitate. Picked up a firearm, went outside, and I'm yelling and screaming at the top of my lungs.
So you almost shot a dog in front of your kids?
Yeah. I never seen Dad yell like that. So, and for the first, hell, for the next year or so afterwards, they, couldn't be in a room with a dog. And that hit me pretty hard.
Major Allison Brager, a research psychologist for the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center at Fort Liberty, says Eric is not alone. The latest theory, blast waves from troops' own weapons could be damaging their brains.
If you think about blast, it's these high energy physical waves coming in through the nose, the mouth, the ears, even the membrane that separates the eyeball. And it's also crossing these tissues and then hitting the brain. When you look at symptoms and behavioral and neurocognitive issues, it's the full gamut. It's sleep, it's attention, it's vigilance, it's decision making, all because the gray matter and the white matter of the brain are impacted.
Do we know that blast overpressure can cause damage to the brain?
No, we don't. It's a complex problem, and at present, what the science we have, again, recruiting world-class researchers to this problem, is it's an association at best.
It's a mystery the military has been trying to solve for more than 15 years. Dr. Brian Edlow, a Harvard professor of neurology, led a recent study with the U.S. military on blast exposure. He says scans of 30 active duty special operations forces found that the more troops were exposed to blast waves, the more physical changes there were to the brains.
And in some cases, individuals have died by suicide, have donated their brains to science, and pathologists have found extensive scarring within their brain that is believed to be caused by blast.
There is no way to test specifically for a blast wave injury, which researchers believe is different than the kind of sudden concussive trauma seen in football players. That lack of a diagnosis has left many troops, like former Army Sergeant Justin Andes, in limbo. 3 years after leaving the Army, Andes is still trying to get a diagnosis for a traumatic brain injury in the hopes the VA will cover a specialized treatment program for him in Pittsburgh. Andes joined the Army in 2018, firing what he estimates to be as many as 12,000 mortars during his training at Fort Johnson in Louisiana. He now struggles with hearing and memory loss.
I was playing Legos with my kid, and while I was looking for the Lego, I would forget what Lego I was looking for, even though that was the only thing I was concentrating on. I was actively concentrating, and then I just all of a sudden I'd be like, what am I doing?
Then one night, he told his wife, Kristen, she deserved better and picked up an AR-15. She says she kicked the gun away, realizing in that moment just how badly her husband needed help.
I love him, and we've been together forever, and we did have plans, and it's hard watching it. It breaks my heart.
Is it hard being a father and having this injury?
Yes, and sorry, it just made me think, like, I know I'm probably going to get dementia at a very young age, and it sucks because there's nothing I can do to, like, be sure my family's set for success.
U.S. Special Operations Command says it's racing to test new technologies and change how troops train for combat.
So we are at Range 37. This is where the Army Special Forces train every day. One of the first things that you're going to see is that this roof is raised up. These walls are now made of rubber. It's no longer made of concrete. The idea is to reduce the amount of blast overpressure that these soldiers experience.
Using suppressors on their rifles as they clear room after room. And when they practice breaching doors over and over like this, they sometimes now use a special charge designed to reduce blast pressures, seen here on this steel plate. The new charge, called Machete, barely moves the plate. Unlike the traditional charge, all of it to try to lessen exposure that could lead to brain injury.
Throwing this ball toward each other, maintaining your balance as you
And for Eric and other active duty troops on base, there is also this, a multi-million-dollar brain health clinic staffed with specialized therapists.
We're going to start with the first line.
From balance tests to memory games to using virtual reality.
All the way to the right. Touch the wall. You're really, really right over there.
The idea is to rewire and heal the brain.
I truly believe that the human brain is the most important weapon system. When you think about the complexities of our jobs and the decisions we're asked to make, that requires the human brain. And we need to preserve, protect, and optimize, and even enhance the human brain as much as possible.
And starting next year, the Defense Department will give cognitive baseline tests to everyone joining the military, whether they deploy or not. It also says it's imposing new rules for how close troops can get when firing certain weapons and how often they can fire them. The culture is changing too, with more troops willing to raise their hands now for help.
I see that's one of my jobs now. It's one of my, duties and responsibilities is to educate those I'm around. So not taking care of myself until I hit 20 years, that's an example of what not to do, but you can still learn from it.
Fire! Fire! Those hard lessons arriving too late for many soldiers.
Right.
Including Andy's, who says his treatment plan is unclear, his path forward uncertain.
I didn't plan on being stuck dilly-dallying around my house the rest of my life rather than having a career and just getting VA supplements. So it sucks. Like, I was hoping to do things.
So many devastated after giving so much for their country. Our thanks to Anne Flaherty for that.